I was born where the mountains wrinkle like an old grandmother's palms and the clouds lean low enough for a child to tug. My name is lytieuca, and almost everything I own could fit into a woven rattan basket if I packed it tight. 2 smoke-scented blankets, 1 dented pot that sings when it boils, a short knife I sharpen on river stones, 3 bowls with faded flowers along the rims, a handful of spoons that don't match, and a clay stove that eats firewood the way a baby eats rice. Small mouthfuls, steady and grateful. My home is not a house in the town way of speaking. It is a bamboo hut with walls I wove myself, a roof stitched from palm fronds that whisper when the wind enters, and a doorway where the threshold is worn smooth by the passing of my feet and the feet of those I love. When the rain insists, the roof and I work together, catching drips with bowls, shifting mats out of harm's way, humming like 2 old friends who know each other's faults and keep going anyway. I live between the forest and the stream because both are generous if you learn to ask with your hands. At dawn, I tie my hair with a strip of cloth, lift my basket straps over both shoulders, and step onto the deer path that threads the hillside. The earth remembers my feet. Ferns fan my knees, vines snag at my sleeves and let go again like mischievous children. There are 100 shades of green in every month, and in those greens I find our living. Dry branches for firewood, bamboo shoots that creak softly when I twist them free, herbs that smell of thunder and clean rain, mushrooms shy as monks, and the big leafed vegetables that keep their sweetness if you boil them only until the water turns a soft, friendly color. The path sometimes turns into a stream and sometimes into a stair of roots. I walk it anyway because walking is the quiet way I tell my child, I will bring us home enough. People in the valley sometimes say, how can a woman raise a child alone on a mountain? I answer them by living. My daughter is small, Han, and on many weeks she stays with my mother in the neighboring hamlet where the slope is kind, and there is always an older woman ready to scold the rooster and stir the rice porridge. I go down often to kiss the warm crown of my little girl's head and to laugh at the serious way she studies a single grain of rice between thumb and forefinger, as if learning the secret of the world. Every visit I promise the same things. I will make our roof tighter. I will keep the fire fed. I will save coins for her first school sandals. I will build a small fence for ducks so their eggs will take care of the rice jar. Promises weigh more than bundles of firewood, but I have learned I can carry them. Morning comes to me like a gentle argument. Must I rise? I must. The hut wakes with small sounds, bamboo ribs clicking like old knitting needles, palm fronds turning their pages, a gecko speaking its brief, comic sermon from the ceiling. The embers sigh when I feed them twigs. Smoke folds itself up the thatch and out through the breathing places. I rinsed last night's rice bowl at the trough I carved from 2 hollowed logs set one above the other. The upper log fills and tips. The little spout knocks the lower with a wooden thock that has become the heartbeat of my house. I am never truly alone while that sound continues. Today I plan a day that is both familiar and demanding. There is meat in the river if I have patience. Crabs tucked under flat stones, small fish silvering in the backwater. The forest has kept for me a bundle of tender vines that will be soup if I carry them home. And the vegetable corner begs weeding. And the roof wants one more knot where the southeast wind discovered a loose seam. Later, after I cook and eat, and yes, I often eat alone, I will cut bamboo and begin the kitchen shelf I have promised myself for months. Bowls do not like to live on floors. Dust writes itself into the mouths of things. Today a shelf, today perhaps a new steadiness. I set out before the sun has sharpened its knives. The path to the stream is ribbed with roots and old rain. I know where to place my feet without thinking. The water greets my ankles like cold silk. Under my toes, I feel the river's careful grammar. Stones that do not move, stones that will, stones that only pretend to be stones until you notice they are crabs. I lower myself onto a flat boulder. The stream mouth opens here, in a small, slow pool where minnows write invisible messages. I slide my hands beneath the water, become patient in the way I learned as a girl, movement only when movement matters. stillness that is not sleep. The first crab startles when my fingers discover him. His claws snip the skin near my thumb, and I hiss through my teeth, but do not let go, into the basket with him. Another rests under a flat stone I lift with my toes. I speak a small apology to the stream. Forgive my hunger. The fish are harder. They move with a nimbleness that makes me respect them. I have set traps, reed cones anchored with small stones, and in one I discover a pair of foolish, glittering fish. I release one because I want to be a person who does that, and the other I place in the basket with the crabs where it puzzles the dark with its tail. When my fingers are wrinkled into river flowers and my basket has begun to complain about its weight, I rise, shake water from my calves, and stand to look upriver. Mist leans low, touching the heads of grass. Somewhere, a goat mistakes itself for a trumpet. The mountains remain as they were, large and uninterested in my small accomplishments, and yet I feel their approval like the warmth from a stove you pass by. The walk home takes me past a stand of wild ginger. The leaves, when bruised, smell of clean anger. I break 2 small knobs from the soil and press them into my pocket. Today's soup will not be thin. At the hut, I wash the catch in the trough until the water runs clear. I set the clay stove to life, kindling, then thicker sticks, and the flame develops the personality of a good dog. Eager, attentive, a little proud. The pot takes water, then ginger, then greens, then the fish and crabs with their red future hidden inside them. When the boil comes, I lower the flame by shifting the fuel with a stick. The smell is exactly what I need it to be. I taste and it is almost there, and I pinch in a little salt from a jar that has learned thrift. When I eat, I do it without hurry. Today I climb no mountain but the one inside the day. This is the food that will let me try. Eating alone is a lesson in honesty. The empty side of the mat is not a tragedy but a truth, and I have learned to place gratitude there. I think of Han and the shine of her teeth against a grain of rice. I think of my mother's hands folding dough. I think of the way my grandmother used to lift a bowl to her lips and drink the last of the broth with the satisfaction of a small victory. I practice their gestures so as not to lose the thread of who we are. After I wash the pot, I coil my hair at the nape of my neck and take up the machete. The bamboo grove leans into the sky behind the hut, a thicket of green flutes. I choose with my eyes. Too young and they will split. Too old and they will be heavier than my patience. 3 mature stalks agree to become a shelf. I make the cut above a node so the stump will not drink too hard and rot. When the long stalks fall, the earth thuds a little in surprise. I trim the tops and carry each length home balanced in the crook of my shoulder. The dog from the next hamlet, really no one's dog and yet everyone's, walks with me part way, nose in the air, tail performing its arithmetic. On the bare earth in front of the hut, I split bamboo with a push-pull rhythm. Draw the blade, guide the split with the left hand, keep the knuckles honest. The slats curl like spring onions. I lay them out to think, then begin to weave the shelf bed, over, under, snug with a heel of the hand. The frame must be squared and drilled. I use a hot nail and the smoke of it tastes metallic. For the bindings, I twist vine into rope, then rub it with a ghost of oil so the fibers submit without complaint. My hands are steady because they must be. When the sun raises one eyebrow, I move into the sliver of shade. A footstep enters the edge of the day, light and unafraid. I do not turn right away because I know the sound. Sister, he says, gentle joke in the word, do you need a second pair of stubborn hands? I look up and smile at Min. His hat has lost the war with the weather, and his shirt holds the outline of half a dozen jobs. Mud at the hem, sawdust at the chest, a smear of something tarry that the river will forgive later. He squints at the frame I've set and nods as if it had introduced itself politely. You chose well, he says, testing a slat with his thumb. This one will carry bowls without jealousy. I was about to brace it, I tell him, but I would not refuse your stubborn hands. He kneels without further ceremony. The bamboo understands him. 2 triangular braces here, he says. Not with his mouth, but with his fingers. A cross piece there. He cuts and fits and shaves an edge until it makes sense. The work between us is a language we both speak fluently and with pleasure. When he holds, I tie. When I measure, he saws. He never grabs a job from me. He waits to be asked. My gratitude for this is a quiet, continuous river. We finish the frame and hoist the shelf to the wall. It leans a fraction, thinking itself wise, so we persuade it into square with a wedge and a whispered insult. Min laughs at the shelf's pride, and the shelf, if you ask me, straightens its spine out of shame. We bind it to the uprights with rope that crosses like a fisherman's net. When I set the first bowl on it and the bowl remains level, I feel a happiness I am not ashamed of. Small order is still order. In a poor house, neatness is not vanity, it is dignity. We rinse our hands at the trough. Min admires the little knocking music of the tipping upper log as if he had not heard it 100 times. Your device, he says, is the sort of cleverness that keeps the world patient. He drinks from his palms, then offers water to the Tieu who has appointed himself inspector. The dog slurps with only a little greed and pretends he has done us a favor. Stay to eat, I say, because I have enough, and because saying it is a way of telling both of us that the day is trustworthy. He stays. I warm the second half of the soup and divide its contents fairly. We eat near quiet, the way people eat when hunger has not frightened them, but reminded them to be grateful. Min asks about Han, not as a test, but as a way of acknowledging the person who lives at the center of my life. I ask about the road crew. He tells me they have been coaxing a stubborn hillside to hold still long enough for a culvert. We trade small news of neighbors, and in the trading we become more like neighbors ourselves. After the bowls are clean and stacked, on the shelf, imagine that, we look at the afternoon in a way that means, is there still room to fit in one more job? There always is. The roof corner that keeps muttering in a south wind must be silenced. Min places a ladder made of 2 poles and salt gray rungs against the eaves, tests its complaint, and climbs as if his bones understand ladders. I stand below, passing new palm leaves up like messages. He tucks and nods, each leaf laid upon the next as a mother lays a blanket on a sleeping child, careful not to wake the roof's dreams. While he works, I pace the margin of the house, checking for vagrant weeds, for the beginning of a rot, for ant roads that announce ideas. I am a woman in love with prevention. When he comes down, his hair is full of dust that looks like a new color of gray. I shake the thatch from his crown with a laugh I did not know I had saved for this moment. He pretends to be a tree that is shedding its leaves. The dog is unconvinced, but he watches with the respect due to comedy. The light has lowered to a place where even the cool shadows look edible. Min glances at the slope and then at me. The river? He suggests. I know what he means. When the day has been a weight on the back, the river will take some of it and make no speeches. We walk down together carrying nothing. At the bend, the water has invented a new pool as it does every few months when it gets bored. We sit and let our feet remember what water is for. A boy from the lower hamlet sees us and raises his hand in a salute that copies soldiers from the television in town. We salute him back and he is pleased. The mountains' faces are unreadable. That is their kindness. They do not judge the small ways we recover ourselves. On our way back, Min points out a fallen branch that has the dignity of a tool waiting to be named. We bring it to the hut and discover its destiny, the handle of my sweeping broom. He shapes it with a knife until my palms approve. In the last light, we fit bristles made of the tough grass that grows where nothing else will. The broom is not beautiful, but it is honest. It will do the work. I am grateful in the particular way that belongs to tools. Evening folds its wings and sits on my roof like a careful bird. I light the lamp and the hut turns itself inside out. The dark goes to the corners. The warm yellow circle of light gathers our 3 bodies: woman, man, animal. I cook rice that has known generosity before it knew scarcity, steam greens that have forgiven me for cutting them, crack an egg that one of my ducks hid by the step. Min accepts his bowl as a friend accepts an answer he already knew. We eat and tell small stories. He shows Han's book to the lamplight, though Han is with my mother this week, and we count the animals anyway. Elephant, bear, fox, duck. He gives the duck too many votes and I argue on behalf of the fox. The dog rests his head on my foot and thereby chooses a side without meaning to. The lamp flutters, then steadies, then listens. Outside, the crickets set a ladder of sound against the night. Min tells me the road crew will move 3 valleys over next week. His voice is gentle with apology that he does not owe me. I nod. Go, I say, and the word is both an instruction and a blessing. Bring a saw that does not sulk. Bring seeds that think too highly of themselves. Bring a story for Han that will make her entertain her spoon. He laughs softly. I will. And I will return when the road remembers that it is only a guest in this mountain. You will be well? I will be stubborn, I reply. Stubborn is a kind of well. He helps me douse the lamp and steps outside to the dark that knows his name. He pauses at the threshold as if to ask the hut for permission and then is gone. His footsteps choose the path as surely as a stream chooses its bed. The dog sighs and takes up the work of guarding what the night cannot quite be trusted with. I sit for a moment longer in the thin smoke of the day's ending and feel both sorrow and relief in proportions that do not insult each other. Then I lie down. I dream that the roof sings. In the morning I discover it was only rain, or perhaps both. Days after he leaves, I begin the slow work of remembering that I have always done this alone, and also that I am never truly alone. I speak to the roof in the morning, asking it to behave like a roof. I speak to the ducks in the noon heat, asking them not to betray me with foolish eggs right where the door wishes to be. I speak to the beans Min sent before he left, planted along the fence with ladders of twine, and ask them to try modestly at first. The beans ignore them modestly, and I forgive them. I set the bowls on the new shelf in a row that pleases the eye and thereby loosens the fist in the chest. Order does this. It is not a small magic. On market day, I carry baskets I wove beside the stream, and eggs wrapped in straw, and the last of the pickled greens I made when everything was too much. I sell enough to add soap and salt to my sack and a small paper-wrapped nail file to keep my hands competent, but not brutal. On the way home, I pass a friend who lost her youngest son last year. We look at each other and do not talk about grief. Instead, we talk about the price of rice, which is another way of admitting our tenderness without lifting the skin. When I reach the hut, a boy has tied a message to my door with a blade of grass. Min's crew settled 2 valleys over. All is well. He sent word for me to water the beans with patience. I tell the boy to come back tomorrow for a duck's egg, and his grin opens the day like a fist unclenching. I decide one afternoon to cut more bamboo and make a low rack for drying herbs beneath the eaves. The sun is merciless, but it also keeps its promises. These leaves will dry. These stems will remember their perfumes. I lash the rack to the posts. I hang small bundles of ginger leaf, pepper greens, the wild mint that hides by the stream. When the wind moves through them, the hut learns a new room, a room made of scent. I stand inside it and almost cry because of the ridiculous luxury. There are also sharp hours. A storm comes early and rude, pushing the door in with wet hands. I set bowls under all the remembered leaks, and still the water invents 2 new poems of its own. I tie a rope to the inner beam and loop it around my waist before I climb to stuff palm leaves into a place the wind has enlarged. My palms slip. My breath remembers a night when Han's fever would not relent. I close my eyes, say my mother's name, say my grandmother's name, say the name I do not know for the woman before her, and then I continue. The leaves accept me, the rope does its duty, the rain changes its mind about shouting. I come down shaking, and I sit with my back to the wall until the floor stops pitching. After, I make tea as medicine for fear, and I drink it slow even though the taste is more honest than pleasant. When the storm is a story instead of a fact. I step into the yard and tell the bean vines they have been brave. Nights alone are not punishments, they are lessons. I listen to the crickets and decide they are counting. I listen to the stream and decide it is reminding. I listen to my own breathing and decide it is proof. On one such night, I take out my notebook, the one the sweeping woman from the commune office told me to keep, and I write my day in a line that will not tell the whole truth, but will keep me from forgetting it entirely. Today I tied a shelf to the wall and set bowls on it like moons. Today the river forgave my stubbornness and gave me 2 fish anyway. Today I mended fear with palm fiber and patience. Today I ate alone and did not feel abandoned. Today the beans lied about how high they would climb, and I love them for it. When Min returns weeks later, thin with honest labor and carrying a new saw like a promise, the ducks announce him before the dog does. He steps to the door with his old care and his new tiredness, and I see in his eyes the distance he has walked. He produces the book with animal pictures for Han and a paper packet of seeds that claim to become bright lantern fruit if one believes in festivals. We pour water over our hands. The trough makes its sound. The house remembers how to contain 2 voices. We do not embrace. We set a post upright that had begun to lean. This too is an embrace. We fall back into the grammar of work without consultation. The new saw bites bamboo without complaint. The braces learn their angles quickly. We add a narrow shelf above the cooking corner for the lamp and the salt jar. We bevel the edge so the flame's heat has no excuse to be rude. When he asks if I am eating enough, I do not lie. When I ask if he has been sleeping well, he does not either. We compare scars, his new, mine old, and decide that pride is useful only if it reminds a person not to make the same mistake twice. That evening I cook a pot of rice that could feed 3 and will, because the dog makes a fair claim. I slice greens thin and stir-fry them with a single clove of garlic I purchased in town as a festival for the tongue. I poach 2 eggs in the leftover soup, and the yolks are small sons. We eat, and the day forgives us for everything we could not finish. Min hums a tune that he picked up from a man with a broken radio. It has no words and doesn't need them. I tell him about the woman with the nail file who swears by lemon soap for the elbows. We are ridiculous and content. Sleep finds us at our honest work. He at the steps sanding a small board to please a future I do not yet see. Me at the low table mending a tear in my best shirt. The dog personally introducing himself to a cricket who has decided to rehearse in the doorway. Later, lying on my mat, I watch the lamp's weak light bow its head and then go. In the dark, everything that matters is still here. The shelf steady as a vow, the trough ready to sing in the morning, the mountains shouldering the night, the child's name in my mouth like sugar, the stubborn pulse in my wrist that means I will live to be stubborn again. When the dawn arrives, it does so carefully, as if it knows the hut has had a long conversation with the night. I rise, sweep, light, boil, rinse. These are my prayers. I feed the ducks a scolded handful of bran and remind them of their responsibilities. Min checks the roof line from the yard and pronounces it handsome enough, which makes me laugh at the idea of roof vanity. We plan nothing heroic for the day. We promise instead a list of small victories. Trim the fence of its gossiping weeds. Teach the beans not to flirt with the duck pen. Patch the road rut where my step has begun to memorize a stumble. Carry water to the vegetable corner that has turned its face toward the sky and is pretending it has been brave the whole time. If you came to my hut this morning, if you stood at the door and looked in, you would see nothing to astonish you, and yet everything you need to understand. A bamboo room that holds a woman's stubbornness like a secret spice. A shelf that says order is not wealth, but it is cousin to it. A pot that has learned to be more than one thing in a day. A man who knows how to hold a beam without being asked twice. A Mai who has chosen a family. And on the pall, beside the place where the light lands best, a cheap, precious notebook where a woman writes the names of her days so she will not forget that she has lived them. I do not pretend my life is beautiful in the way postcards are beautiful. It is a beauty with calluses. It is a beauty that holds a knife in a bowl and sleeps with one ear open to the river's mood. It is a beauty that sometimes loosens like a knot in rain and must be tied again with calm hands. But I have learned to count this too as grace, that I can stand at my doorway with a spoonful of soup that tastes of ginger and river and pride, and I can say to anyone, even the wind, even the mountains, even the version of myself who once believed she would starve on her own, today I have lived enough. In the afternoon, when the sun has grown bored with scolding and the shade looks like an invitation, Min and I lift the last plank into place on the drying rack and step back to admire the simple geometry of usefulness. I place the salt jar on the high shelf and it becomes, in that new position, something like a blessing. I stroke the broom handle he whittled and it tells my palm the truth. Everything that matters can be touched and maintained. Everything that survives does so because someone loved it enough to repair it. When evening leans her shoulder to my doorpost, I make rice again and scrape the pot well, so tomorrow will not begin with regret. The ducks talk it over among themselves and lay 2 eggs where I will certainly find them, because pride sometimes becomes generosity. I wash and sit, and Min tells me a story about a road that tried to become a river, and a crew of men who reminded it gently that the world needs both. I tell him a story about a shelf that thought itself a roof and learned the pleasure of holding bowls instead of rain. We laugh, and in laughing, we do not lose what is solemn. We learn to carry it better. Night arrives, and with it the deep quiet that makes the trough's wooden knocking sound like a heartbeat. I lie down and fold my hand beneath my cheek the way my mother did. I think of Han and feel the warmth of her crown in the poem of my memory. I think of my grandmother and the song she used to murmur while patching quilts. A song without words for the women who came before us and were braver than they had time to boast about. I think of the mountain and how it keeps being here without arguing its case. I think of the shelf and how it stands as if it has always been true. And then, with the roof breathing above me and the stream talking to the stones it loves, I let the day close its eyes. Tomorrow I will wake with the smoke and the birds and the courage that has become a habit. I will tie my hair, lift my basket, and step onto the path the deer and I share. I will ask the river and the forest and the sky for small favors and repay them with neat knots and careful harvests in gratitude that is not noisy. I will write the next line in my cheap, precious notebook. Today, the bowls on the shelf look like moons, and I remembered, again, that even a poor hut can be rich when everything in it has been chosen and kept with love.